The tranquil gardens around St James's Church in Lower Hutt seem a long way from the dirt and chaos of the Queensland flooding earlier this year. It's hard to believe a stream like this one that flows through the gardens could also have the power to destroy. Three-quarters of the state was declared a disaster zone. Around 35 people lost their lives and thousands of people had their homes wrecked.
Serving central Queensland, this is 7 Local News.
Tonight, entire towns evacuated as floodwaters continue to rise. A motorist to be charged for risking flooded roads. Good evening, thanks for joining us. Entire towns are underwater and hundreds of residents are being evacuated as the floods crisis worsens across central Queensland.
The news footage of vast areas of land covered in water is hard to forget. For Jean Malcolm, the flood we were watching on the news had a far more personal impact, as she was sent with her colleague Winton Davis to spend 2 weeks helping out in the diocese of Brisbane in the aftermath of the disaster.
We arrived wondering what we were going to be doing, really, and we arrived at a time when the kind of crisis point of the floods had ended. Most of the water had gone. People had already begun on the clean-up, and all the armed forces and police and council were heading around picking up great mountains of rubbish that had come out of people's houses that was just unsalvageable. We were based in Ipswich and went out to various places from there. And when we arrived, there was that kind of feeling of it being a bit like a war zone, which was, partly because of the scene of just devastation, but also because of all the guys from the forces around in their camouflage gear and their big trucks, and I mean, thank God for them, because the fact that they were there and able to take away those huge mounds of rubbish it made such a difference to the people to be able to then feel like they could get on to the next stage. The generosity of people was just astounding, the things that people were willing to give, but even more so for me, the time that people were willing to put into helping others out and get in there and get mucky and help them sort it and have people in to stay in your house who you've never met before, because they need somewhere to sleep. And astonishing sense of God's strength being found in our weakness.
Is it hard to find the words to say to people who are in such distress?
I think no. The answer to that is no. I didn't find it hard to find the words to say. Sometimes they needed to tell their story again and again and again, what happened. But other times they just needed to have a conversation about something that had nothing to do with the flood. And you can go into those sorts of situations thinking, well, I've got to say the right thing, and the right thing is. But that's not what's needed at all. People need someone who's willing to be really present with them, absolutely listening to where they're up to, ready to feel what they're feeling. And a lot of those folk aren't really feeling very much at the moment. They can't get on with it. They want to get on with it. One of the only feelings they really have is frustration.
So what did you come away with?
It's really interesting, a kind of a headache. And I didn't have it while I was there, but when I got back, this kind of persistent headache, which was, I think, a sort of embodying some of their stress. The sense of there's all this stuff that's happened and I just can't get my head around it, literally, and so my head's just bursting. And one of the things that my colleagues who've been, living through the whole lot, shared with me in particular, this sort of flood brain phenomenon where your brain isn't working anymore. It just kind of goes all fluffy and you can't remember things and you forget to do things, and the things that you would normally do as a matter of course don't get done. And Winton and I were able to be alongside people and remind them of things that they do need to do, and just be a sounding board for those kinds of things. And so I think when I came back, I began to experience some of what they'd been experiencing, kind of carrying it in me. That whole business of being present is, it's an intangible, but it's incredibly important. And that's another one of the things I think that I learned from being being in that situation, something that I knew already, but learned again, that we can get so busy doing that we don't have enough time to be with people, and so that's what we were there for, to be with people.